Hello and good day. In pre-algebra, we'll be covering CO3, writing rational numbers as both fractions and decimals. There's a reason why we have this. There's a reason why we can take a value such as 1/2, okay, and write it as both a decimal. Oop, I forgot to change this to smart ink here. That's going to make a difference. What is the decimal value of 1/2? 0.5. Okay. There's a reason why we can do that. There's a reason why we have that, right? Because different units that we use in our daily lives use values differently. For example, money is written as a decimal, right? We've got $2.75. That decimal 2.75 as a fraction is 11/4. But you're not going to see a price tag that's 11/4 dollars. No, you see 2.75, $2.75. For all you bakers that read recipes, right? If you need 3/8 of a cup of sugar, it's written as 3/8, not 0.375. Even though they're the same value, different things represent values different ways. I've always said that I'm going to open up a math store and sell only math things like square root beer. Square root beer, and I'm going to sell it in square containers in either 4, 9, or 16 ounces. Perfect squares. Get it? And I would write my prices as improper fractions just to make people think. But I was told that was a lousy idea, so I haven't done it. But anyway, and so that's what we're going to focus on today. Okay, writing rational numbers as both fractions and decimals, kind of going back and forth. And the definition that we have today is convert. What does it mean to convert something? You've probably heard this in the context of converting an improper fraction to a mixed number, or in our case today, converting from a fraction to a decimal. What does it mean to convert in the mathematical sense? Yeah. Change. Okay, good. Any other thoughts? Simply put, it means to write a value in another form, or to write a value another way. The value itself isn't changing, just the form in which it's being represented. 2.75 and 11/4 have the same value. 3/8 and 0.375 have the same value, but the form in which it's represented is different. Fraction versus decimal. Okay? Follow me so far? Yeah? Okay. So let's scroll down the page a little bit here. We'll clear the ink. This one I have to do, since I did this on the, oh geez. Oh man. I gotta go over to the desktop for this one. Backspace on that. Get rid of that. Oop, nope, don't get rid of all that. Just that and that. This is why I struggle with technology. Okay, let's see what we have down here. All right, so we're going to start with integers to fractions. An integer, as we know, is a positive or negative value that is not a decimal or a fraction. But here we're going to write integers as fractions. So for example, if we have the integer of 8, 8 written as a fraction is just going to be 8/1, 8 wholes, right? The value of 8 represents 8 wholes as a fraction. It's going to be 8/1. How about the integer -12? What's that going to be as a fraction? -12/1, -12 wholes, okay? And remember, the reason why this works, the reason why we can do this is because that fraction bar is division. That fraction bar is the operation of division. So if we start with 8 and we rewrite that as 8 divided by 1, that still equals 8, right? -12 divided by 1 is still -12, but it is in fraction form, okay? It's kind of the easy one. We'll scroll down a little bit more. Here we have fractions to decimals. Let's say we have the fraction 1/4. Tell me how we can convert that to a decimal. You might know what that decimal is just off the top of your head. It's a fairly common one. But how would we get there? Yeah. Does anyone know what the decimal is off the top of your head? Yeah? 0.25. Okay? But how do we get there? That's the question. So that if you have a decimal, or if you have a fraction that you don't know what the decimal is, just automatically, how do we get to 0.25? Go ahead. 1 divided by 4. So if you had a calculator, that would help, right? If you put 1 divided by 4 into a calculator, you would get 0.25. Unfortunately, I'm not going to allow a calculator on this test, so there's got to be another way.
You see how many times 4 goes into 100, and then times 1 by how many times 4 goes into 100?
That's the key right there. Those of you that have started to work on your con, there are questions similar to this, and those who have come up and asked me for help, I said, okay, let's rewrite this fraction with the denominator of 100. 100 is kind of like your golden number, your target number. You want to write an equivalent fraction with the denominator of 100, and you'll see why in just a little bit. Okay, so now the question is, what do we have to multiply 4 by to get to 100? What's the scale factor? 25. So 4 times 25 equals 100, and as it was said, you're going to multiply that numerator by the same number, which gives us 25 over 100. Right? Our key here was getting from 4 to 100. We did that by multiplying by 25, so we do the same thing to the numerator. We get 25 over 100, or another way to say that, 25 hundredths. What was the decimal that we said 1/4 is equivalent to? 0.25 or 25 hundredths. That's why we want that 100 there, right? Because you read that fraction, 25 hundredths, exactly how you read the decimal, 25 hundredths. Okay? Let's do the fraction 3/5. 3/5. Write that as a decimal. Again, we want to say, what is this equivalent to over 100? What is this equivalent to over 100? How do we get from 5 to 100? That's where we start. What's the scale factor to get from 5 to 100? Yeah. 5 times 10 is 50. So we're halfway there, so double it. 5 times 20. Okay? 5 times 20. Whoop. Meant to be on red here. 5 times 20. So we're going to multiply 3 by 20 as well. And what's the numerator of that fraction? 3 times 20 is what? 60. Okay? 60 over 100, we've got the denominator that we want here. 60 over 100, or 60 hundredths. How do you write the decimal 60 hundredths? What does that look like? 60 hundredths, yeah. 0.60, or just 0.6, because 60 hundredths can easily be reduced to be 6/10, which is what that decimal is right there, 6/10. So whether you write 6/10 or 60 hundredths, either way, it's the same value, okay? And that would be the correct answer. So the key to converting a fraction to a decimal, and being a key point, this can go on your help sheet, write an equivalent fraction with a denominator of 100. That's the important piece. And then when you write that equivalent fraction, as you probably noticed, your numerator is the decimal to the hundredths place. 25 hundredths, 0.25. 60 hundredths, 0.60. Right? Now, of course, you will have denominators that don't go into 100 evenly. Like if we had 17 fortieths, Well, 40 times 2 is 80. 40 times 3 is 120. At a later date, we'll talk more about that. Okay? So for right now, all of the fractions that I give you, I think, will go into 100 evenly. 4, 5, 10, 20, 25. Okay? So that'll help you understand and get that process down. All right? Questions on that? Questions on fraction to a decimal? Okay? A decimal to a fraction, then, is just kind of the opposite, right? If we've got the decimal 0.35, and I ask you to write that decimal as a fraction, I said that, I read that as 0.35, but what's another way to say that decimal using place value? Yeah? 35 hundredths, right? The same way that fraction is written, 35 hundredths. So it says decimal to a fraction with the decimal out to the hundredths place, write the decimal as a numerator of a fraction with a denominator of 100. Kind of the opposite of what we did up here, right? Starting with that decimal, 35 hundredths. There's the fraction. We do need to simplify this, though. What is the greatest common factor of 35 and 100? What are we going to be dividing by? 10. 10 doesn't go into 35 evenly, so that's not going to work out clean for us. Did you say 10 or did you say something else? I can't. I'm sorry. The masks and me being old and things, it's just inconvenient for all. But yes, 5 is correct. Okay. So we divide by 5, the numerator and the denominator each, and we get 7 over 20, and that would be that fraction in simplest form. Okay. Yes, you must simplify. Okay. Just like you would never ask your lit teacher, so do you want me to end all my sentences with punctuation, like with a period or a question mark or something? You know, I mean, duh, right? Never ask me, do we need to simplify fractions? The answer is always yes. Always in simplest form. Let's do 0.48. Go ahead and try this one on your own quick. Writing it as a fraction, of course, in the simplest form, 0.48. You can read that as 48 hundredths. So your first step is to write that as the fraction, 48 hundredths, 48 over 100. And then what is the greatest common factor of 48 and 100? What can we simplify? What can we divide by? Both 48 and 100. 4. Right? And that gives us 12/25. Okay? Any questions on that? Is this review? Have you kind of done this before? So then what other mathematical concept falls right in line with fractions and decimals? Percentages, right? What does the word percent literally mean? Sorry? Amount of something, that's kind of a broad definition, but the word percent literally means what? Yes, but the word cent, that root word cent, refers to what? We use it in money because it means this. The word cent means 100, right? That's why there are 100 cents in a whole dollar. That's why a century is 100 years, okay? The word percent literally means per 100 or out of 100, okay? That's why our percentage symbol looks kind of like that. You kind of see the pieces of 100 there, just rearranged, 001, Okay? So when we get to percentages, we will be coming back to this concept here, but it does fall right in line with that. Per 100, the denominator of 100 is such a key skill to have, to be able to get. Okay, so clear this ink. We'll scroll down a little bit, checking the answer here. You will not be able to use a calculator on this section of the test, but you can check your answer by calculating the fraction and making sure the resulting decimal matches your decimal answer. So if I asked you to convert 3/5 to a decimal, and we went decimal to fraction on this one, but if I asked you to convert 3/5 to a decimal and you got 0.6 as an answer, you took out your calculator, took 3 divided by 5, you will get, 0.6. And that's how you know that you would be correct, right? You've used the calculator to check. Now, you'll not be able to use the calculator to check on the actual test. So I recommend doing it now so that you build that confidence, say, yes, I can do this. Yes, I know I can do this. Question in the back. No, very well. Okay, let's take a look at the second page of this then, moving right along. So for your homework, the directions here, it says convert integers to fractions. So if you're given an integer, I want you to convert it to a fraction. If you're given a decimal, I want you to convert that to a fraction. And if you are given a fraction, I want you to convert that to a decimal. Work must be shown. Now, how do you really show your work on like 18? That being an integer, converting that to a fraction, that would be the exception where all I would really need there is the answer. There's not really any work to be shown because you're just writing it as 18 wholes. But when you get to some of these other things, where you're converting a fraction to a decimal or a decimal to a fraction, that is where I want to see the work. So we'll do a couple of these together, just so we kind of we're clear that we know what we're doing here. You've got 15 of them here. Give me one that you'd like to do. Which one looks particularly entertaining? Yes. 3/4. So going to a decimal, thank you. Given a fraction, we want to write an equivalent fraction with a denominator of 100, right? 3/4 is equal to what over 100? This also kind of falls in line with proportions, doesn't it? You know, 3 out of 4 is the same as how many out of 100? 3/4 is the same as what over 100? How do we get from 4 to 100? What's the scale factor? What do we multiply 4 by to get to 100? 25. Oh, well, whatever. Okay. Times 25. Times 25 here. And we get 75 over 100. Or 75 hundredths. And what is the decimal 75 hundredths? Go ahead. 0.75, exactly. Okay? That's the work that I need to see there, though. I need to see you writing that equivalent fraction and then how you get from your given denominator to a denominator of 100. Okay? Another one you'd like to do together. Yeah?
1.45.
Negative 1.45. Second row, fourth one here, negative 1.45. So we're going to a fraction. Okay? We see that our decimal value is negative, so our fraction value is going to be negative, right? Because the value here doesn't change, only the form that's written in. And we see that we have a whole out in front here. So we might be thinking mixed number, improper fraction. We can go either way. How would you read this decimal other than negative 1.45? Use place value here. Yeah. -1 and 45 hundredths. Isn't that exactly how we read a mixed number? You would read that as -1 and 45 hundredths. Okay? We still have that -1 whole out in front, and then we have the part, the 45 hundredths, afterward. Of course, we do need to simplify. So what can we divide both 45 and 100 by? What's the greatest common factor? Any new folks that want to join in the conversation, haven't participated yet, but just dying to get involved? Yeah, divide by 5. Okay, so I'll do that. The -1 doesn't change because we aren't simplifying that. That's -1 whole. But then 45 divided by 5 is 9. 100 divided by 5 is 20. -1 and 9/20 would be your answer as a mixed number. If you are more of an improper fraction person, which are really just, they get a bad reputation. There's nothing improper about improper fractions. So I feel sorry for them. But if you want to do improper fraction, how would you write -1.45 as an improper fraction? Not as -1 and 45 hundredths, but as an improper fraction. What would that look like?
100 times 1 plus 45.
So that's still kind of a mixed number here. That's there is technically a plus sign, or in this case a minus sign, in between our whole and our fraction in a mixed number, because you have your whole and then you have something else. Yeah? Written as a decimal here, since we're going from a fraction to a decimal, this is just our medium to get to the decimal. If you simplify 75 hundredths, you'll be right back to 3/4 again, and you can't simplify that decimal, right? Decimals can't be simplified, only fractions. So no, we are using that 75 hundredths as a fraction to get to that decimal value there. But what would this be, -1.45 as an improper fraction? What makes a fraction improper? Let's start there. Yeah? You know? Yes? Numerator?
Yeah, the numerator is bigger than the denominator.
Right. The numerator is larger than the denominator. Okay? So in this case, -1.45 as an improper fraction is going to be -145 over 100. -145 over 100. And then if we divided that by 5, just like we did with -1 and 9/20, or -1 and 45 hundredths, divide that by 5, we get -29 over 100 as an answer. Okay? These two values are equivalent. They're the same. One's written as a mixed number, one's written as an improper fraction. Or I'm sorry, not 100. Oof. When you see I make a mistake, stop me. Okay? -29/20. Those are equivalent values there. One is a mixed number, one is an improper fraction. Either answer is okay, right? If you're more of a mixed number person, then mixed number answers are just fine. If you're more of an improper fractions are just fine. Okay? All right. We'll go over one more together. One more that looks particularly, yeah. John. -5 and 1/10. So another kind of, we have a whole here, right? It's given to us as a mixed number. We want to write it as a decimal. That -5 out in front is just going to be the -5 out in front of our decimal, right? -5 and 1/10, -5 point, okay? And since this is a 10 here, we can go to place value right off the bat. What is -5 and 1/10 as a decimal? -5 what? Negative 5 what? Negative 5.1. Okay, so we can go directly there. If we had gotten up to our fraction of 100 here and get negative 5 and 10 hundredths, well, 10 hundredths, negative 5.10, same thing as negative 5.1. Okay? So, yes, question? Sure, yeah, go ahead. Yes. So for this one going to a fraction, 0.34 or 34 hundredths, you're going to start by writing that fraction, 34 hundredths, and then simplifying. We aren't trying to get to 100 here because we're already at 100, right? We can write that decimal as a fraction out to the hundredths place. And so now we're just going to simplify. So what's a number you can divide both 34 and 100 by? They're both even, so start with 2, right? If your value is given to you as a decimal, I want you to write it as a fraction. Yeah. So this one here, again, being given to you as a decimal, I want you to go to a fraction. When I'm talking about it's going to work out evenly to be 100, that's when I'm giving you the fraction, which means that you need to rewrite this fraction with a denominator of 100 so you can convert it to a decimal. And if you'll notice, 20 does go into 100 evenly, right? And 5 goes into 100 evenly. 25 goes into 100 evenly. Yeah, go ahead. As far as how to simplify it? So 87 hundredths, or 87 over 100, is there a number that you can divide both 87 and 100 by? No. So you leave it just like that. Okay? You leave it just like that. Okay? Yeah, sometimes it kind of, you can get jumbled and lost as far as what is my answer supposed to be? It's supposed to be a fraction, it's supposed to be a decimal, right? So if you're given that fraction, you're going to the decimal. If you're given the decimal, you're going to the fraction. Okay. Then the bottom part here, one more style of assessment for homework. It says match each fraction to its decimal value. So 3/10. You're just going to draw a line to whichever decimal value that refers to, 9/20ths, 3/100ths, 8/25ths, and 4/5ths. Okay? And that wraps up the homework for CO3. Any questions, comments, concerns, complaints, compliments, congratulations, or criticisms? No? Okay. Homework is to finish the page. That is how you math. I think we can do better. Don't forget to like and subscribe as a group in unison. Ready, set. That's how you math. Much